right. So here, there we go. Okay, so we'll get started. So this is us, the people that are chatting with you today. My name is Nick Pringer, founder and CEO of Pringer Solutions Group and AskGenius, joined by Ashley Winans, who's Vice President of Client Services. She's in charge of all the consulting work we do for nonprofits. And Rob Sims, who's in charge of all the digital stuff that we do for nonprofits, like donation page design and dashboard reporting and all that fun stuff. And I think this is the first time we've had an all Omaha crew. Is that right, Rob?
It was just hitting me when we popped up there. I'm like, hey, look at us, just the Omaha team here.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So Team Omaha, we don't have any of those pesky Minnesotans or folks from Kansas here today. Let's jump in the background. For those of you who haven't attended webinars before, who are we? Why are we talking about this? What do we do? Pringer Solutions Group is a fundraising consulting firm. We started about 4 years ago. We're small but mighty. There's about 15 of us. We provide fundraising consulting largely to Catholic dioceses. That's kind of the niche that we serve very well. We also run annual appeals for those dioceses, anywhere in the neighborhood of $2 million to $5 million, all the way up to about $25 million a year. We provide full service annual appeal consulting. We do some outsourced Razor's Edge database administration for folks. And we actually have some fundraising automation that we do, which we're excited to talk about. In fact, we're going to talk a little bit about that today. We also, if you're wondering why this invitation was from AskGenius, and you'll hear about it a bunch, AskGenius is a software tool that we built to help us in our work with our clients. Then it turns out solves a really painful problem that a lot of nonprofits have. So we've turned it into a little software product, and it's been selling like hotcakes. So we're excited by that. We'll have one slide on AskGenius later. But really what we're doing today is we have committed as a firm to build in public, right? So we spend a ton of time researching what works well, because clients are paying us a whole bunch of their hard-earned money to help them raise more money. We're getting paid to improve their fundraising results. So we are always looking for how we can do things better. And in that vein, we've focused on optimizing a whole bunch of different areas. And that includes the webinars that we've done over the past few months. So understanding donor personas. We focused on pledge card design, ask amounts, fundraising letters, online donation pages, social media, direct mail, using email. That's where you're at today, right? So all of these first couple bullets, we've already completed. We've had webinars. We've got tons of great feedback that people always say, hey, we want more. So that's what we're doing. Every time we learn something new, we put together a little webinar, we build in public, we share what we know for free with all the folks, including those of you on here today. Okay. What we have coming up next, the next big webinar we're doing, Rob, I think you're joining us for this one too. Rob and Andrew Menke and myself, 7 common pledge card mistakes. That's coming up on September 20th. We will email you after this webinar with all the links and everything so you can sign up for those. And then looking ahead, we know year end is important to a lot of nonprofits. So later in September, we're going to do that one that we talked about pledge card design. October, we're going to talk about year-end giving, right? We're all running very large, year-end appeals. 30%, you guys know the stats. 30% of all gifts are made in December, and the majority of those are made in the last few days of December. So we want to make sure we're helping you as much as we can for year-end giving. In November, we're going to talk about how to run a year-end matching gift challenge. And then in December, it sounds boring, right? But I'm telling you, I'm so excited. How to write the world's greatest tax statement letter. It is an area that is ripe for improvement because everybody has the world's most boring, dry tax statement letter. It doesn't have to be that way. We've had some great success by turning that tax statement letter into something more. So we're going to talk all about that in December so that you can then send those out in January. Okay. And I'm going to do double duty today. I'm going to put the link in. Okay, we're having some issues where it looks like I'm the only one that can send out a note to everyone through the chat. So do me a favor, that's a good housekeeping item. If you have questions as we go along here, hit the Q&A button on your screen. If you've been in our Zooms before, you know how this works. Submit your question through the Q&A button. It shows up on my screen and Ashley and Rob's screen, and then we can answer it live towards the end of the webinar. If you put it in the chat, which normally you're able to do, I'm not sure if that's working today or not. If you drop in the chat, we lose sight of it in the thread. So make sure to use that Q&A button and we can get your questions there. Okay. Ashley, that was a lot of throat clearing just to get to the topic of today. So let's jump in and talk about this. What do you need to know about email campaigns. That's the topic of the day. So we're going to start with a slide that we always use because it kind of helps put things in perspective. We need you to know that direct mail is still the king of fundraising. PSG is a digital firm. We do amazing technical, sophisticated digital things. And Rob is in charge of all that. And we're so proud of it, from social media to, automations and ringless voicemails. We live for the fun digital stuff, but we need you to know direct mail is still king. So don't get carried away when we talk about email fundraising. Don't let your CFO say, oh my gosh, we can finally stop paying for all those stamps and just send emails out. That's not how it works. Here's a way to look at it. The old chili dog analogy, in the delicious chili dog, direct mail is both the hot dog and the bun. Your online donation page is simply a condiment. It is the mustard. Your email campaign topic today is the relish. Social media is the onion. So that helps you visualize where should you put your energy. Digital stuff is ancillary, right? It supports it. Multi-channel appeals are critical that help you raise more money, but you've got to have a good, strong direct mail. We have done webinars galore on how to write fundraising letters, on how to connect with donor personas. Start there to improve your direct mail. And now we're going to talk about some of the fun stuff on the side. We'll talk about the condiments. Okay. Starting out, let's talk about the power of an email. This is the old way of how nonprofits would connect with donors, right? When we talk about email, they'd say, oh yes, we've got our e-newsletter. The schedule for a typical e-newsletter is that you're sending it out monthly, no matter what, right? The only certainty in life is the death, taxes, and that your e-newsletter blast is going out on the first Monday or the second Tuesday of the month, every single month, no matter what, whether you have a great story to tell or not, right? You are going to send it out according to that schedule. The readership in the old way, who the heck knows? Somebody started a list sometime long ago. It may be pulling from your CRM. It's probably in Excel or something, or even worse, it lives inside a MailChimp, or Constant Contact, and it's divorced from your donor database, and you don't really know who's on that list, but you know that it goes out every month. How many hours does it take to create? Millions and millions of hours it takes. There's probably an entire department whose whole job is to put together that e-newsletter and proofread it. And that is just the way that you've always done it before. Okay. That's sort of the world that we inherited. It's one we know very well. We've been fundraising for nonprofits for decades. There is a better way though. And that's really the core of what we're talking about today. Okay. And Ashley, I'll bring you into this. So we had this idea when working with our clients, and this is one of them here at Conde. We thought, what if we can do something more heartfelt? How can we connect with them outside of an e-newsletter? So Ashley, I guess walk us through what we've been doing with clients and how it's been working.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been working with clients to create heartfelt, personal, even say fun emails. They go out on a 1 to 3 weeks time frame, every 1 to 2 to 3 weeks. It's just that constant communication. And so the idea behind that is to build the relationship with the donors. Donors give to people, and once they get to know them, then they're more likely to continue giving. And so we've seen great results from that. Excellent.
Okay.
Yep.
And while we did that, Ashley, I think I saw the chat feature. I know that we had some people mention that they couldn't. So there's some, if you can notice, our marketing director, Andrew Bridger, is out today, and everything is falling apart as we try and do this ourselves. So you should now be able to chat. Feel free to test that out as we go here. Okay. So as Ashley said, we're heartfelt emails, connecting to a real person. For our experienced fundraisers on the line, people give to people. They're not reading your e-newsletter. Like it might put you top of mind. They'll see the subject line, but if you can write a message that actually connects with them on a one-to-one basis, our theory was that it's going to have a good result. So today we're going to walk through a case study of whether or not our hypothesis worked. Okay. So we're going to focus on the Diocese of Phoenix. As I mentioned before, our core consulting, when AskGenius is a software product that we built, our consulting side of the firm works with Catholic dioceses. The Diocese of Phoenix has been a longtime customer of ours. So here's what we did. We took their database and we split it into 2 groups. And we made them alike. The size is a little bit different for reasons I can get into. But there's donors and non-donors. There's a nice cross section. And what we did was, the folks on the left, we sent them heartfelt, real emails from a real person about every 2 or 3 weeks, right? From Conde de Leon in this example. Folks on the right, we did not, right? We just did what they were always doing before. And then after a year, we were able to look at the data and find out, okay, did it work? Did it do what we wanted it to do? Okay. So question number 1, do emails increase participation in their annual appeal? So the diocese, much like a hospital foundation or a university or high school, they run a big annual fund appeal. It's kind of the core central fundraising they do. That's what we're measuring here. So the folks that received the email participated 38%. 38% of the folks who received those emails took part in the appeal by making a gift versus 24% of folks who didn't get the email. So for the folks who are on the line here who are good at math, that is a cool 62% more likely to give to the appeal if they're receiving those heartfelt one-on-one emails. Okay. And we'll talk with Rob about the technical aspects of like, how do we send these out? How do you make them personalized? Okay. So far, so good. Then we wanted to know, do emails help with retention? It's on all of our minds. How do we keep the donors that we have? How do we not have lapsed donors? Do emails help with that? We'll go to the data. There was a 6% decline in year-over-year participation, so a 6% churn or lapse, or however you want to define it, among folks who got the emails. From everybody else, there was a 19% fall off in participation year over year. That means that folks who are getting these emails are 3 times more likely to renew their gift. Okay, so far so good. Do emails correlate with larger gifts? Does it appeal? Does it increase generosity? Average gift, $264 versus $107. Okay, that means the gifts were 2.5 times larger. Things are looking pretty good about this strategy here. Are email recipients more likely to give online? This is kind of a question, but we want to test it to make sure we're not missing anything. And the answer is yes. Half of the donors who received that email series gave online versus just 10% of those who didn't, which, if you're a database administrator or gift processor, is great news. It is easier to process a gift that comes in electronically than it is to process a gift that comes in through the direct mail. Plus, you get accurate email addresses, right? Because they're filling out that form online. So we really love online gifts. 5 times more likely to make an online gift. Are email recipients more likely to make recurring gifts? The answer may not shock you. Yes, 16% made recurring gifts versus just 5% of the folks who didn't get the email series. Okay, that means they're 3 times more likely to make a recurring gift. The big takeaway of all of this, and those are the initial stats. We've continued to reap the benefits of this as we've rolled it out to other and other clients. The big takeaway is that your organization needs to be emailing your donors a lot more often than you are right now. Okay, that's your key takeaway from today. Number 1, email your donors more often. And those emails should be personal, heartfelt. Ashley, what are some topics that just from your work with the clients? What do we talk about when we say personal, heartfelt emails?
So it's just being a real person. So, we're at the end of summer. So Margaret over in the Diocese of Richmond, she does a great job sending a weekly email. And so one of the last ones she did was about summer vacations, and she put in her favorite ice cream flavor. Well, then she got a flood of responses because her favorite ice cream is salted caramel. And so everyone came back and saying their favorite ice cream, where they were going on vacation that summer. And it was just real back and forth conversation between her and the recipients of her emails.
Yep. Love it. And Margaret in particular, has become something of a celebrity, right? It's email lets you create that personal connection at scale that you can't. In a perfect world, your development director or team would meet one-on-one with every donor every day, and you'd share these stories about ice cream. There's just not enough hours in the day. Email lets her make that connection for free in a really authentic way. From a real person, we've talked about this. So do not send emails out from donor support at organization.org. Don't send them from development. Send it from a real person. There's a person who is opening that envelope, receiving those checks. That is something that we found to be really critical. Ashley, do clients ever push back on that?
They do. Yep. They do push back because they're concerned about how personal to get in their emails, and, just not what to share, what not to share. But as you get into the groove of actually doing it, you'll find yourself doing something over the weekend saying, oh, this would be great for an email. It's your next topic. And so once you get in the groove of it, it's pretty easy.
Yes. And I think it's the two things you said. So it's like not knowing how much to share about the personal life, but also there's sort of a humility that comes from development directors, right? They don't want to overshadow the organization. It's not about me, it's about the mission of our foundation or the mission of the Humane Society or whatever it might be. And that's all well and good. And I think that's a noble sentiment. I'm a practical guy, right? If it raises you more money and your donors like it, then put your dang face on it, right? Like embrace it. That's the world that we're living in. They want to know that there's a real person there. So don't be humble. Now's not the time to be humble. Sign the emails from you. No photos or graphics. Rob, do we ever get, what's the story here?
The idea behind what you were just saying too is you want it to look like it's coming from a person. You want it to look like Ashley mentioned Margaret. You want it to look like Margaret's sitting down at her laptop and writing that email. A lot of times, if you think about when you're shooting a coworker or a friend or something an email, you're not dropping in formatted pictures. You're not dropping in formatted graphics into a casual email, right? I mean, there's other places to do that. There's Facebook. There's, you're going to share pictures elsewhere. But in an email, you're typically sitting down, typing, sending. You're not dropping in a lot of images in a casual, normal email. So that's what we want these emails to replicate is I sat down, I typed this to you, and I sent it to you.
Yep. And there's research behind this too. So there's a great company that we're big fans of called Next After, who does tons of A/B testing on things like this. And they have shown that when you write it text only, when you write it from a real person, it's not overly designed, you have better open rates, you have better donation rates. That's what we're looking for. This is always hard. So we always share from the consulting side. It's hard to get them not to add in headers, right? And logos, and photos and things like that, because you have them and you want it to look nice, and we're all designed to make things want to look nice. We as a consulting firm have the freedom of just looking at what works, right? And if what works is text, then we're going to encourage you to just use text. Okay. So no photos or graphics. Don't hyperlink. Rob, what do we mean here when we say raw URLs?
Just kind of building on the point I just made too, is when you say, hey, take a look at this link, you're not usually hyperlinking this link and dropping in the link. You're just grabbing it, the URL, and throwing it in the email. So again, that's just a natural thing to make it look like it's coming from a person. Even if you're using your constant contact, those lists, you want it still to look like a natural email in just a environment that you would send it. You just copy paste. You're not again doing a whole lot of formatting any boxes or anything.
Yep. And there's so many, I just want to highlight, there's so many good questions that have come in. We're going to tackle all of them here. So give us a couple of minutes. We're going to run through, because there's questions about unsubscribe and everything else. We're going to tackle all that. So keep the questions coming. One I did want to address here, because it's right on topic, bounce rates and spam rates and getting into the folders and stuff. The more you write from a real person and the less overly designed it is, the more likely it is it's going to actually make it to the donor, right? Spam, and we can do a whole session on this. The way that spam, filters work is they're looking for a bunch of different things. A whole lot of photos and graphics and formatting tells people that it's spam, right? And there's something about our brains too. When I get an email and the first thing I see is a big polished header, I immediately think this is marketing, right? I'm being marketed to. Not that that's good or bad, but I think, okay, I'm putting in that bucket in my head versus, an opening sentence that's nice and short and to the point. We talk about this a lot internally. We probably need a catchier name, Ashley, but we talk about the 8-to-1 nourishment ratio. We've been talking about this for years inside of PSG, and now we're sharing it with the world. What do we mean by that, the 8-to-1 nourishment ratio?
Sure. So for every 8 stewardship type emails you send, you can send one that asks for a gift. So it's really putting out those emails about your favorite ice cream or what you did over the summer, or a great conversation you had with somebody in your organization about your mission. But then, after 8 of those, then we'll let you put a link to give in there. So just finding that right balance.
Yep. Well said. Think of it in terms of permissions, right? So I read a great book on this topic of, you want to earn the right to have permission to be in your donor's inbox, right? If you're just sending them generic newsletters because you've always done it that way, you're not really doing anything that to get permission to be in there. So 8 times of 8 touches, 8 nice compliments, 8, hey, thank you for your gift, or here's how your gift has been great. 8 of those for every one time that you're going to send an ask. Okay. We get the question a lot. So what does that look like when we say, email your donors more often? Here's what I'm talking about. So this is a typical calendar for a typical client of ours. The blue circles, that's when we're sending out an email. you will notice it's a bit random. It's not every Tuesday or every Tuesday and Wednesday or, every, fourth Monday. It's following a rough cadence that we want. We know we want to email maybe every other week or so, and then we, build up during December. But if we get to one of those dates and we don't have something good to say, we're not sending an email, right? Or conversely, if there's like a great news article about our organization in the paper and we hadn't planned an email, I'm going to send an email out. So it's a bit of an art and a science of knowing how often you want to communicate, but then going with the flow of when do I have something good to tell, a good story to tell. That's really the key, right? So don't get so rigorous on I'm sending this out every Monday morning. Just go with the flow, know how often you want to send it, but base it on when you have something actually important and useful to say. So on that calendar I shared before, that's 34 emails that were on the calendar there. 30 of those were showing impact, showing appreciation to the donors, and only 4 of those were invitations to donate. And that is really critical. Take the long view on fundraising. We've talked about this in previous sessions, and I keep sharing it because I know it works really well. Focus on the off season. And by the off season, I mean the time when you're not actively fundraising, which everyone rolls their eyes and says, well, we're always fundraising. And that's true. But I'm talking about what typically happens at a nonprofit is you have your big appeal season. And we always send out in September, we send the mailing out, and then we do follow up. So knowing that, we get really good at talking to donors in September, and then we get really bad at talking to them in February and March or April. Flip that on its head. Start your appeal thinking with the off season and what are all the ways that I can tell this donor how amazing they are for months when I'm not fundraising or actively fundraising, because then by the time you get to that ask, you're going to have that relationship. You'll have permission to be in their inbox. Good things happen. Okay. Quick recap of why emails are important. Those 34 emails in this case study resulted in donors that were 62% more likely to give to the appeal, 3 times more likely to renew their gift. The gifts they made were larger, 2.5 times. They were 3 times more likely to make a recurring gift. If you need anything more to convince you, then we're not doing our jobs. Email your donors more often, heartfelt emails. Okay, let's talk specifically. So we know, Rob, we have the H1 ratio, right? So your emails should be telling donors how great they are and connecting with them with good stories and just checking in and all of that. But then it does come a time when we want to ask them for money. We want to ask them for their support. We want to invite them to give. So let's share a couple thoughts on that. Solicitation emails, those 4 out of the 34. I'll share something I've learned, and then I'll ask you a sort of a technical question. The best language I've seen in all the stuff that we've tried has been some variation of this phrase, right? So think of a heartfelt email from your development director to your donors. It's time to coincide with when your direct mail hits. Bonus points if you watched our direct mail webinar we did a couple of weeks back, because you'll remember that you can actually have a service from the US Post Office that will tell you when those mails are arriving in people's homes. So then you can time your email to go out right after that, so you don't have to guess. But an email that says, hey, it's me, it's Nick Pringer, just wanted to send you a note. You've been such a great supporter. Hey, a lot of our donors have asked me about how they can give online, so I wanted to make sure I shared this link with you. And it's magical because it's short, it's to the point. You're not fluffing it up. You're not trying to hide the fact that you're fundraising. You're being very clear about it, but you're also setting up this image in the donor's mind that everybody else is giving online, right? And they're reaching out. There's this conversation happening. We have seen great things happen when you use that phrase. Some variation on following up on the letter that you got, just wanted to kick you a note. Here's a link to the donation page. Rob, what about this? So when we send that link, are we sending just one link to everybody, or how does that work?
No, not ideally. And, I think we sent a link out to you about that. Is these emails, when you're sending these solicitation emails, segmenting, you'll hear us, and if you've been at our other webinars, you've heard us talk about segmentation being key. It's not just, here's our giving page. Of course, you're going to have your general giving page and that you need it. But when we're asking for solicitation emails, we are splitting them up into different groups and sending group A to this website. We're sending group B to this website, and with an intention in mind of this group fits this mold, this group fits this ask amounts, and so it's important to segment that. And one other thing I wanted to just echo what you were saying too, Nick, with those 30 emails compared to the 4 ask emails, you're going to be tempted to put a PS, hey, if you want to give here. You're going to be tempted to put, well, we might as well just put a donate button at the end if we're just, if we're going to email in.
Right.
Don't do that. That's the whole point. People want to hear from you when you're not asking for money. And so that's, you're gonna feel like, well, I should just ask them anyway since I'm emailing. No, don't do it. That was something that jumped out at me when you were talking. I'm like, this, don't get sucked into that. Send as few solicitation emails as you can.
It makes me think I should, if I was better at my job, Rob, I would have put on the screen. We have so many sample thank you notes from donors who write and say, I just want to say thank you for reaching out to me when you weren't asking for money. Like, I guarantee you will get the same thing. People are shocked by it and it stands out in their mind and they end up donating more and more often. So don't fall into that trap. Yes, our job is development, but it's a human game, right? People want to give to people. They want to be connected. They don't want to feel like they're just an ATM machine. So I agree 100%. You're going to hear the argument, oh, what's the harm? Just put it in there. Maybe somebody will stumble upon it and leave you $1,000 or whatever. Don't. Like, it's more powerful when you're just reaching out without the ask. Okay, so on the screen, this is from a webinar we did on donation pages. So we have a whole hour that we got into how do you segment donation pages? What's a perfect donation page look like? Mitch can drop that into the chat so that people have it. But just illustrating what Rob's saying, when we're emailing, when it does come time to ask people and invite them to give, you send the solicitation email, you time it to map up with your direct mail one, and you're segmenting your audience, right? Whether that's, Rob, 8 different emails, or if you have a program that lets you drop in the variable data, right? And like, this group goes to this page, this group goes over here. Do not send everybody to a one-size-fits-all page. Okay. If you're interested in the stuff on the screen, go check out the webinar after this. Don't leave right now. We got more good stuff, but go check out the webinar we did all about donation pages. It was one of the best ones we've done. Here's what it looks like in the real world. So internally, we know, okay, well, the charity.org/appeal page is for low-end donors. You know, the charity.org/generous page is for the, our very best donors, and the ask amounts are different. So the donor doesn't know that they're going to a different segmented page. They think they're just going to donate. You know, because you're good at your job, that you're inviting people to give on the different pages based on their capacity and prior giving and everything else. Okay, so you might ask, how do we know where to send people? How do we know what the right amount to ask is? This is where I can share, the 30 seconds on the crazy useful tool that we built. It's called AskGenius. Lots of the folks on the webinar, see all the names on here. Lots of you already use this, so you already know. If you haven't checked it out, you're probably going to love it. AskGenius it does one thing well. It combs through the mountains and mountains of data that you have on your donors, whether you're using Blackbaud or Salesforce or Virtuous or Bloomerang or whatever it is. AskGenius is a tool that lets you comb through all that data, and it will come up with the perfect ask amount for everybody on your list. You can choose whether you want to be aggressive or conservative or somewhere in the middle. So you can use that to send your direct mail appeals, and then you have the numbers, and you can use that data to decide what donation page you want to invite them to give on. If you're on Razor's Edge, it's available in the Blackbaud marketplace. If you're on another system, let me know. It works with all of them, and we can certainly fill you in. One thing that's cool, there's a good development that's happened recently. We have a partner called Give Central. I don't know if anybody on the line uses Give Central, but this is where the world is going, right? Give Central is an online gift processor. They have donation pages, some cool widgets. They just rolled out a functionality that lets you take custom amounts and populate them on a donation page for every single donor on your list. So Rob, this is, we're pretty blown away when we saw this. So if you're sending out an email to 1,000 donors, you can set the ask amounts with AskGenius. You can plug those into Give Central through a cool little upload function. And then what it will do is it'll give a unique URL for every single donor. So Nick and Holly get an email, I click on it, and it takes me to a donation page. It looks like everybody else's, but the ask amounts are specific to me. And that's, am I describing that accurately, Rob?
Yeah, that's exactly how it is. And it's so much more easy than creating 8 different pages, because you're not going to create 1,000 different pages, right? But you're going to create some different variations, but this allows you to get to more folks with more personalized asks.
Yep, which is always a good thing. So if anybody has technical questions about that stuff, let us know. We've got no dog in the fight. So we're software agnostic on what you use, but when we see companies doing really cool things that are going to end up raising more money, we definitely want to highlight it. So if you're a fan of Give Central, if you already use them, reach out to Vish or Bridget or one of your folks there and ask them about this, because it's going to be pretty cool. We're testing it out with a couple of our consulting clients actually as we speak. Okay, Rob, back in your realm, what about bad email addresses? And this came up a couple of times I saw already in the Q&A. And I think let's define it in two different ways. Bad as in like people that want to unsubscribe, and then bad as in like it's not working anymore. So the first one, what if somebody unsubscribes? Rob, what's your thought on this? The client's like, Nick, I don't know, I don't want to send this out or not. What if people unsubscribe? What are your thoughts?
A couple of different thoughts. First of all is we're not going to lie to you, you're going to have some unsubscribes. It's going to happen, and it's okay, because you think about the entirety of your database. You think about how many thousands of emails you have. God forbid you lose 10. To us, what it tells us too is, and think about it in a practical sense, those 10 folks. And we laugh at it sometimes too, because we send out this amazing email that, Ashley was talking about, Margaret sending ice cream, like, I'm unsubscribing from that. Like, okay, if you don't want to hear about ice cream, or if you don't want to have a fun, engaging conversation with Margaret, who's super likable, then you're probably not going to be a strong candidate to donate anyway. And you still may donate. Maybe you just aren't in the, you're not into the emails.
Yes.
But those candidates probably aren't as likely to be as attached to your organization in that case.
Yep. This reminds me of the conversation we always have around direct mail stuff too, Ashley, where we find our clients, and even ourselves sometimes, like writing letters like to appeal to, the young demographic, or our grade school alumni. If we could just get our grade school alumni to give, like, and we work on that, and it's honestly kind of nuts, because that's not a group that's really going to donate, right? So it's sort of the same thing. Like, don't write your emails with an audience in mind of like not offending the people that might unsubscribe. Like, it's impossible, so like write for the people, we use Margaret as an example all the time. I mean, who's Margaret? Who's the core audience? Who is she writing those emails for?
She's writing to the emails to her entire donor base. So they're just a lot of different topics each week. That I think she does a great job about that. So that's something just to keep in mind too. She's writing about current events, or, somebody that she ran into at the diocese, or her summer vacation. So it spans the scope quite broadly.
Yep. I saw there's a note in the chat. I wish we could convince our marketing department of this. I get it, right? That time-old battle between it's designers are the same thing too. When we say don't over design an email, designers are like, yeah, right, I went to school for a reason. Like, here's 17 more colors in this email. We get it, but the point is, I see a lot of virtual heads nodding. Don't write your email to try and avoid people to unsubscribe. It is okay if people unsubscribe, and a good way to sort of make this as minimal as possible. Make sure that you're writing the first email that goes out. If you're not doing a lot of emails, make sure the first one is as innocuous as it could ever be. Right? Thank you for being a donor. You're incredible. Just wanted to say that. Right? The people that unsubscribe to an email that says you're incredible, thank you so much, like, great, get them out the door anyway and stop wasting your time with them, and then move on, from there. Okay, so that's just us a little pep talk about it's okay, unsubscribes are normal. I unsubscribe from things all the time. That doesn't mean that I don't like what I'm getting. It just means that I don't need to get an email from them, whether it's a nonprofit or I just bought a shirt somewhere and they'd send me 10 emails the next day. Okay, how can you check for bad email addresses? Rob, what are we talking about here?
Well, some of your systems, whatever email systems you're using, will have kind of a built-in email finder or email, corrector anyway. That logo that Nick just popped up there too, Email Hippo, we've had some clients use that, and it's by all accounts super easy to use, super affordable. And this is just one example. I'm sure if you type in Email Hippo, you're going to get the competitors too. So, but it gives back, what. If you accidentally typed in hotmail.com instead of com, and it'll show you, oh, well, then it's probably not a completely bad email. It's just, let's correct that letter and send it out the next time, or send it to Email Hippo again next month, and we'll hopefully have cleaned that up. So it's really easy to utilize, and it's a good way to continue to get your emails delivered.
And that helps you too from a standpoint, if you're using a Constant Contact or a MailChimp or something like that, they're tracking your deliverability rates. And the more you're emailing bad email addresses, it can kind of ding you, and eventually, you're not going to get blacklisted. But that's kind of like the biggest fear is that you get marked in some systems that are out there is like somebody sends a lot of bad email. So it is in your interest to clean up. It may feel great that you have 20,000 email addresses. It'll feel better if you have 7,000 that are like real live people, that are going to open up what you're sending. So email Hippo is cheap. It's useful. Again, just like before, we don't have a dog in the fight. Use any, service that you like. This is one that we've had good success with, and it's relatively inexpensive. Okay. So we've talked about emails, about the importance of them. Sorry, I'm going to pause there. There's so many good questions coming in on chat. Make sure you put those questions into Q&A, because I know that I'm going to lose them here and I'm going to get mad at myself after we stop the webinar. So even if you wrote a question into the chat, put it in the Q&A to make sure that I get to it here in a little bit. Okay. So we've talked about emails, the power of emails. We know they work. We know that they're powerful. We know people donate more. Based on our experience as normal fundraisers outside the digital realm, we know that the more we interact with people one-on-one, the more likely they are to support an organization. So we thought, all right, let's take this to its logical conclusion. Individual emails are better than, or personalized emails from a real person are better than e-newsletters. So what if we could write to each donor individually? Thought exercise, right? What if our development team could send out, even to the level of like, hey, happy birthday, Sue. I saw it was your birthday today. Or Dan, I just saw your gift come in. That's incredible. Rita, hey, you've been given for 10 years. How wonderful is that? What if we could do this? Mark, thanks for filling your pledge to the zoo. We really appreciate you. That would be pretty great, right? We think that would probably be the highest functioning development office that we've ever worked with. Your gifts would be pouring in. But there's some problems with that, right? What's the challenges? Why can't we, just email every donor individually? Well, there's tons of reasons, which you probably already know. You don't have the staff to do that, right? You don't have the time to do that. You'd have to, like that email example of like, hey, Rita, thanks for, I think this is the 10th year in a row that you've given. The only way for you to know that would be to go in and look through your database and take notes by hand of whose anniversaries are coming up. This was a question there too, right? What if donors write back, right? That's real hours in the day that it takes to respond to those. Plus, you probably have donors that are assigned to portfolio managers, who's in charge of sending the emails and what does all that do? A lot of reasons that don't work. So we're going to put a pin in that, but I'm going to shift talking for a second about LinkedIn. Almost everybody on this webinar today uses LinkedIn. Let's talk about a really cool feature, and then I'm going to circle back to our idea about emailing everyone. So LinkedIn, when you log in, like all social media these days, you've got a feed, right? It's constantly going. So I opened up mine the other day, and this is what I saw, right? It said, congratulate this guy named Gabe. He started a new position. Congratulations, Gabe. Okay. It says, say congrats. So what do? Well, I go and I click on that little button. And what does LinkedIn do? It writes the dang email for me. In this case, it's a message within LinkedIn. But how incredible is this? I didn't wake up thinking about Gabe, but I opened up this app. He got a new job. I thought, hey, I honestly don't even remember who Gabe is. I probably met him at a conference or something sometime, but I don't remember him. But because of this and the way it's laid out, I'm just clicking a button and it says, hey, congrats on the new role. I'm sending in this little message. All I have to do is hit send, right? It's a pretty powerful thing. We are seeing this trend across Facebook. We're even seeing it now in Gmail and in Outlook. They're starting to finish your sentences for you. Automation is the future. It is where all things are going. So here's the good news as we're talking about email. Everything that's happening on the screen right now with LinkedIn, just suggesting a message, writing the message for me, serving it up on a platter to really all I have to do is click a button. The great news is that we can now do the same thing with donor emails. Okay. We can bring that same level of automation, of time saving to donor emails. Here's what we're doing. And the sky's the limit. We're just scratching the surface of this. So I'm going to spend about 5 minutes walking through some of the email automations that we've been toying around with. And then I'm going to get to Q&A here. Okay. So here's the background on this. Most of our clients use a software called Blackbaud Razor's Edge, pretty ubiquitous. Probably most nonprofits, probably most of the folks on here use it. About 2 years ago, Blackbaud opened up a certified connector to a software called Power Automate. Okay, it's a Microsoft product. Essentially what it is Power Automate is like a Swiss Army knife. It's like a universal plug adapter. It lets you connect Razor's Edge to other software systems, for example, Outlook or Gmail. And then you can set triggers so that when something happens inside of Blackbaud, like a donor makes their 10th gift, or a donor pays off a pledge, or a donor has a birthday, inside your database, you can then set up triggers to, using Power Automate, send an email or draft an email for you. Okay. You can use those emails to do amazing things with your donors. We did a webinar, you'll remember, it was probably a couple of months back for the folks that have been around. We did a whole webinar with Ashley on donor personas and the people that are giving to your appeal, right? From Steady Eddie to Campaign Kathy, Checkbox Charlie. If those names ring a bell, you're probably at the webinar. If not, we can drop the link in. So we know who your donors are. We can draft emails based on those donor personas and based on activities that happen inside of Razor's Edge. And here's what I'm talking about. This is a sample. This is actually my Outlook. And you'll see on the left, I'm in my drafts folder. We've set up automations so that using Blackbaud's connection to Power Automate, Power Automate's connection to Outlook, there are automatically donor emails that are drafted for me when I open my laptop in the morning. I open it up, I'm a development director, and we've got, looks like 6 emails ready for me to review and send if I want to send them, right? If it's a donor I don't know, or if the message seems weird, I can just delete it. So this example is one to John Smith. John, and this is written from me. This is not going out through MailChimp. This is not going out through Constant Contact. Does not have an unsubscribe link at the bottom. It is actually going out from my Outlook account to the donor, as personalized as it gets. John, I just saw the gift you made to the annual appeal. It's incredible. Hey, I think this is the 8th time in a row that you've been given, 8th year in a row that you've given to the appeal. That's fantastic. Okay. This is where the world is heading. This is the sort of thing that we've been doing on the automation side for our clients. And I'm not here to sell you automation. I'm just here to tell you this is where the world's heading. If you have questions, you can always reach out to me. But we're getting to the point now that development directors open their laptops in the morning and there's 10 drafts sitting in there. Some of them have left. Some of them say, Nick, I only want 3 or 4. But we're setting up automations that the emails are sitting in there drafted, ready to go. Development director clicks on it. If it's not a good fit, they just delete the email. If they know the person, they might add a sentence or 2 at the top, right? Like, hey, great to see you, golfing or at the kids swim, practice the other day. And then they send them, right? So you dedicate you start your day with emails drafted for you, hyper personalized to your donors, sending them off. Just think what this is going to mean to your fundraising results, right? It's going to be pretty incredible. And we already know this to be true. Ashley, we've been doing this for a client in Kansas City. How's that going?
Going great. He loves it. Every morning he has 3 to 5 emails served up in his inbox, and then he goes in and just does a few tweaks. He ran into somebody, put a nice note in there that says, great to see you, and click send. And so he's been doing that for several months now, and he's getting touches to all their top donors. That's where we started. And now we're creating some different flows for him to reach out for birthdays and first time gifts and consecutive giving.
It's awesome. And we'll get into more detail. I just wanted to get into this because we were talking about emails. I'm sure we'll do entire webinars just on automations and how to set them up and everything. But that client I'm thinking of in Kansas City, like he texted me and said, Nick, this is the best thing that's ever happened in my 30 years of development history. Just it's prompting him and making it easier for him to connect with donors. It's not rocket science, right? Like emailing donors, no big deal, but just the way that we can serve it up on a platter now because of the technologies that are out there, it's incredible. It is a total game changer. So some of the emails that we're automating for clients, somebody makes an increase in their gift to the appeal. We want to call it out and say, hey, John, I saw that you gave much more this year. That's wonderful. Thank you. Maybe you got a birthday in there. Somebody made a milestone gift. It's their 20th gift to the organization. Maybe somebody joined a new giving tier. Like, hey, Randy, I saw that you joined our, president circle this year. That's wonderful. Here's a little note about, what that means. All this stuff can be automated and to look like it comes from a real person. We're building workflows. If you have a major gift officer team, so if you're at a hospital, you got portfolios, you're at a university, we can build workflows now, and you can build workflows now where when a donor makes a gift above a certain level, let's say $1,000 or more, regardless of whether they're in a portfolio, you can send an email alert to somebody. If they're in somebody's portfolio, email that major gift officer. If somebody makes a $5,000 gift and they're not assigned, email the person in charge of assigning donors and say, hey, put this person in a portfolio. It's just mind-boggling how much you can do with these automations. I'm not going to get into a ton of detail because I know we're running up on time. I want to get to all the Q&A, but this is a really big deal, right? Gift alerts, automating emails to donors. There's all sorts of database cleanup stuff that you can automate now. We're big on it. I won't take us down that direction, but it's worthwhile as we talk about emails, recognizing that it's not just heartfelt emails that you're designing and sending out. There's also emails that you can automate to be really hyper personalized to each donor. Okay, just what this looks like, we consider it, military terms, it would be a force multiplier, right? Automations are a way that you can, with very little effort, have a really outsized impact on your donors. Emails are the same way. Okay, let's get to Q&A. Before we do, things we'll send you. So I always get the question, are you recording this? Yes, we record every webinar. We will send you the recording to the webinar. So check your email, probably by end of day today, depends on how fast Zoom can turn around the video call here. So we'll send you a link to this webinar recording. We will send you a link to download these slides that are on the screen in front of you. We'll send you some more information about AskGenius. We always get asked about that. We'll send you a link to some of the prior webinars and the most popular ones, how to write the world's greatest fundraising letter, a template for pledge cards, what's the best design for your pledge cards, all that good stuff. If you want to do a demo for AskGenius, I know we didn't talk about it a bunch, but it's pretty awesome. So in the next 2 weeks, we have 3 spots available. If you want a one-on-one demo, you can use that QR code right there. Set up a time with me or Andrew Mankey. We can talk about your organization and how it can help. Or next Friday, August 26th, we're doing a public demo. That's always a great way, less of a commitment. You can come attend, it's live. We'll walk through the product, how it works, all of that good stuff. So that's coming up next Friday at 11 a.m. Central. And with that, let's get to Q&A. So I'll stop sharing my screen. I'll start, Rob, with you. Anything, as I start to look through, anything, questions you saw that are technical things you want to tackle here while I get caught up on the questions?
It varies with, I saw the open rate question, and that's always going to vary because you can Google and say, hey, what's a good open rate? And you'll get tons of different responses for different products. I mean, you're looking at marketing versus sales versus nonprofits. I mean, it's insane, the open rates that we see with these personal emails that we send, because even our expectations were pretty low when we sent them out, and we're like, okay, yeah, more than half the people open that. I mean, that's unreal to have more than 50%. But these emails that we're sending with a lot of our clients are more than 40% most of the time. And you'll see a lot of like 20 to 23% as like a benchmark. But yep, like the clients that we're sending are seeing almost on a consistent base more than 40% open rates.
Yep. And I flew back in from Phoenix last night. I was meeting with a big client we have down there. And they've been sending these emails to everyone, not just donors, every email on their list. Like they started during COVID, and they're consistently hitting like 45, 46, 47% open rate against a nonprofit. Again, you're so right about all the numbers floating around, but generally nonprofit numbers in the low 20s is what's good, or standard. So it really does work. Great question there. I'll tackle 2 technical ones quick, and then Ashley, I'll find some for you. Is there a certain time of day that works best to send out emails? Andrew Bridger on our team, who's our VP of marketing, did a bunch of research in this, and he has had big fancy positions all over and is responsible for knowing these things. He said the latest research is if you can send it at 45, like before the hour. Everybody plugs theirs in to go out at like 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. He says the latest research shows if you can send something like 9:45 a.m., 10:45 a.m., after people get done with their meetings from the top of the hour and they're checking email. So that's a good strategy to try. Like in all things, do an A/B test, right? Split your email in 2, see which one works better, and then do more of that. Question, is Power Automate the same as a workflow? Yes, Power Automate is a tool. It's a lot like Zapier, but it's a Microsoft product. So if you're familiar with Zapier, Power Automate will resonate. And what you're building in there, the things are called the workflows themselves. Different than NXT workflows, Rob, am I right on that? Is that?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say, so yeah, it's different than if you're referencing, if the question was coming from that standpoint of, is this the same as workflow in NXT? It's not the same. It's kind of the same gist, but with a much more robust possibilities through
NXT. Yeah, NXT, they built in some little automations. This is like big leagues, right? You're going from T-ball to like, holy cow, you can do some pretty amazing things. Okay, question, Ashley, how do you define donor? Are you looking at last gift date, 2 years, 5 years, general funds, thoughts on that?
Sure, even for sending email wise, I think you can send to all of them. If you have an email address for them, send it to them. I wouldn't put any restrictions on that for the emails.
I want to echo that too, because we showed those Phoenix stats that you showed at the beginning, and you may have mentioned it too, but we sent those emails initially, so we were able to compare who we sent to versus who we didn't send to. That was like the first year that we worked with them. And then we're like, okay, well, why are we not sending it to everybody? So we were sending it to donors only. And then we're like, we have all these other emails. Why not just send it to them as well? So then we did open it up to absolutely everyone. And we're still seeing those ridiculous open rates.
Yep. Love it. Anne had a good question here. So this is, Rob, we're going to talk about unbounce here, I think. What about using hyperlinks if the raw link is A, incredibly long, B, doesn't include the organization's name? Like if it's a page hosted by Blackbaud, are you really going to drop that big messy thing in there? Do you want to walk through what unbounce is and what we use?
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple ways. Obviously, first of all, it's okay to send messy links in an email, even if it's super long and has hundreds of numbers, because nobody's going to read it. They're just going to click on it. so that's fine. Don't worry about that. If you're trying to like format it, make it look nice on like a pledge card or a print materials, yeah, completely different. To your point, Nick, what we do with our donation pages is instead of having charity.org/ 2022 underscore giving underscore, instead of having all of that strings, what we do is we use a service called Unbounce that allows us to create really simple web pages that we host donation forms on, and we are able to mimic it. So instead of charity.org/ give blah blah blah, we just do give.charity.org, and allows us to rename these pages to make them look super clean. So if you do want to drop the raw link in somewhere, it looks nice anyway. So, but unbounce.com, check it out. It allows you to build pages and kind of attach them via CNAME records to your own website.
It's a great solution for so start with your IT and say, hey, I want a nice clean URL for a donation page. And if they freak out, or if they say we can't do that, and it has to be, / ***, string of numbers, Google landing page creator, Unbounce is one of the best ones. Simple, easy. It gives you a nice page. You bolt it onto your website, and then take your Razor's Edge giving form, or your Give Central form, or your Virtuous form, or Fundraise Up, or whatever you're using for online giving, and plop that on the page. So it's a way for you to kind of bypass all the bureaucracy in setting those up. If you have more questions on that, shoot me an email. I'm happy to answer any of those. But Anne, thank you. That's a great question. Ashley, did you see any in here that you wanted to tackle as I continue to scroll through?
Yeah, so there's a couple in here from Lana about how long the email should be and thoughts on ghostwriting. I would say the length of the email can vary on the topic. So don't restrict yourself to, super concise, short, similar to our heartfelt long letters that we encourage. Sometimes a long email is necessary to get the message out. And if you are a development director and your CEO is struggling to write these types of emails, I'm all for ghostwriting those for them and give them the prompts. So a lot of times what you can do is at least, write an initial draft, then they can go in and add their personalization to it. And I think you'll find that if you do that a few times, then they'll start, jumping on the bandwagon as far as like how to really write those for themselves.
Yep. Well said. Question from Lara about email deliverability. Do you see anything go down when you send it from a real person? No, your email deliverability will go up, right? If you're sending it from an actual address and not from like a support @ or contact us or do not reply. In addition, not just deliverability and like bounces, but if you use Gmail, they have the separate categories. They're everybody's getting smart about this. They're auto tagging emails and putting them in like, this is a promotional email or an advertising, or, it's not just spam anymore. The more you can have something come from a real person, the less likely it is that you get relegated, to the kiddie table of their inbox. So we've seen that work really well. I know I saw some questions in the chat about like, what about if people reply? You can do a couple things. We encourage, if you can handle the workload, if I'm the development director, I want the emails come out from Nick, at nonprofit.org, and I want to get the emails back as well, because I will find time to email, that I'll make it work. If your organization is too huge for that, it's okay to have the replies automatically go somewhere else, right? To your major gift officer team or your gift processing team or whatever it might be. You can play around with that. But there's different ways you can set it up, right? Do not let yourself not email because you're worried that you're going to get a flood of responses, because instead aim for the flood of responses, then figure out the best way to triage that. Teddy asked a question. What about, would you recommend an email server like MailChimp or something for these kinds of emails, or Outlook? Two different answers. For the heartfelt ones that we're sending out, those are still bulk, right? We're still sending those out to thousands of people at a time. Yes, we're going to say Dear Nick at the top. We're going to insert that, that person's first name. And we might have some other variable data in there, but those are bulk emails, great for constant contact. MailChimp, if you use Razor's Edge, you can use Razor's Edge, NFT email. For the automations, we're using Outlook or Gmail, right? So we're like bypassing the bulk mail server and setting up really personalized, individualized emails based on actions that go directly to the donor from my actual Outlook, right? So if you set up an automation, you're going to go into your sent folder and you're going to see all these emails going out from a real person. I want to reiterate, Austin did a great job. The automation stuff we're building, it is not a Razor's Edge. It's not a Blackbaud product. Blackbaud has a certified connector to this Microsoft product. That's what we're using to create these. You can start Googling around and find out how to set up automations on your own. I want to make sure I'm not confusing folks as we got into the automation stuff a little bit. Okay, Rob, any more on your end that you see here? I think we've answered most of these.
Yeah, Doreen sent along Kristen's question, so good teamwork there, you guys. The question about adding an action in RE, it's possible to do via this Power Automate plugin. So it just depends on how you set up all that automation on the back end, but it certainly is possible to create a new action inside of a constituent record.
It will blow your mind. You can, anything that you can dream of, honestly, our team has been able to create. Yes, it can be detailed and wonky and stuff, but it's accessible. In the old days, to do anything like this, you needed to have somebody who knew how to code, right? That's where the world is shifting, is that you don't need to know how to code to be able to set up automations anymore. You just need to be able to, attend some webinars, teach yourself a little bit, play around with it. I'll commit right now, just based on the interest, we will do a bunch of webinars on this topic. On automations, both email and some data cleanup stuff we've done. So I'll add that to the list for folks that are really interested. So make sure, if you're not yet, sign up for our e-newsletter, because that's where you'll hear about all the webinars and everything else that we're doing. With that, Ashley, any last ones from your end?
I just think, just to reiterate, some anonymous person said, are you sending these emails out in response to gifts or just in general? So two sides to that too. The heartfelt, general one, those go to everybody anytime. And then on the flip side, yes, you can, for the Power Automate emails, send those out to people who, made that increased gift or that large first time gift or any type of gift that you want to recognize for them.
And I feel like I'm taking us down this automation path because I can't stop talking about it. The changes that you can have to how you process gifts, right? You can have an automation that when someone makes a gift, hey, if they have an email on file, let's send the gift receipt via email. And if not, let's write the letter for them and let's drop it in this folder. It's just incredible what you can do. So that's on the automation side. On the heartfelt email side, send it to everybody, just like Ashley said. Great things will happen. In wrapping up here, we probably don't have 3 spots available anymore. I'm sure we have 0 for the private demo, but feel free to use that QR code if you can get in. Otherwise, next Friday, we'll do a demo of AskGenius. We're so proud of it. It's going to save you a ton of time. It's going to raise you a ton of money on your next appeal. So look forward to seeing many of you out there. And if you haven't yet signed up for our e-newsletter, that's where we'll announce all of our upcoming webinars. With that, I'll end right at noon Central. Ashley and Rob, thank you so much. You guys did a great job. And we will see everybody on the next webinar.